Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 24 of High Street Sports. My name is Chris. This is Vince. We are here to talk some Buckeye football with you guys. Sorry about the delay. A lot of stuff going on, so we missed our usual Sunday, but we're back, ready to talk some Buckeye football and all the things happening across college football. Vince, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not a whole lot. I'm still concerned about what's going on up north. I think that that's probably the biggest story right now. As we know, Ohio State beat Rutgers 35-16 in what was kind of an ugly Big Ten game. It is, and that poses the question: is Rutgers really that good? Because outside of TreVeyon Henderson and Marv, really wasn't much going on for the Buckeyes on offense. Silver Bullets got knocked in the mouth, but still a good game. And then, here we are. So let's get right into it. I think, do you want to kind of bring us up to date on what's going on up north, what happened over the weekend, and the most recent Blake Corum updates?
Yeah, so unless you're living under a rock or completely missed what we put out last week in our little conversation about the situation up north, there have been a few developments. The Big Ten has informed the University of Michigan that they do and can and will impose some punishment under some Big Ten bylaws in the way that those rules are written. And this whole buzz topic here has been due process. Michigan wants due process. I think the entirety of college football wants due process, but when you come to the conclusion that I think everybody is starting to come to with the evidence that's been put forth to the NCAA, that, by the way, did not come from Ryan Day or his brother. I think when you have everything that is on the table, especially with Michigan, who by the way, I think one thing that bothers me, and I've seen a couple people tweet this, and I can't remember who I saw recently tweet this, but somebody, it was Mecca Don, tweeted, "I will never forgive Michigan for what they've done to this rivalry." And I think that is the biggest part here. When you speak to most Ohio State fans or just college football fans in general, like, Michigan has a team right now that is good enough to do the things that they're doing without having to go to the lengths that they're going to. And, I think that's part of the thing that really kind of stings in this the most. Like, everybody wanted this rivalry to be renewed, have some more, vitriol, but nobody wanted it to come this way. And, that kind of, brings me back around to what I was going to say earlier, is that the NCAA has, enough evidence to really bring the hammer down on Michigan, it seems. And the Big Ten has made it known that, they are preparing to make said punishment. Michigan has made it known that they are willing to fight the punishment, whatever it is. So credit them for standing on what they believe. They have not done anything wrong, which is kind of crazy. But, when you really get down to it, there's a lot going on in Michigan. There's a lot, to unpack there. There's a lot to really dissect and see what the hell is actually going on in that program. And, one of the things that you mentioned, Blake Corum, is being tied to Connor Stallions in an LLC for a company in Wyoming, which kind of, to me anyways, puts the narrative to bed that none of these guys knew what he was to the team or what he was doing. If you're in business with this guy, there's no shot you don't know anything about what he's been doing, what he's up to, what he's providing to the program, and anything like that. And in that case, I believe that there were reports that came out as well that the NCAA has made it known that Jim Harbaugh wasn't aware directly of what was going on. But again, I kind of call bullshit on that, because I don't think you can find another low-level recruiting staffer that stands 15 feet around Jim Harbaugh at all times on the sidelines with call sheets. I'm no expert on college football staffs, but I don't think recruiting staffers stand that close to a head coach during a game with call sheets. That just doesn't really make sense to me, but I could be wrong. So there's a lot to unpack here, man. There's, Aiden Hutchinson said that he didn't know Connor Stallions, and pictures circulated on the internet of those two celebrating a Big Ten championship in the locker room, and that could have been a picture in passing. But to me, just seeing the facts and kind of understanding the lengths of everything going on. And then I believe another report came out that the gentleman that came forward with this information to the NCAA actually had a connection to the Harbaughs. So there's a lot going on here. Right now it's a lot of deflecting, a lot of oh well, other teams had our signs. Yeah, but if you hear people around college football talk, there are instances of that happening, but I think the difference is those signs were gotten organically, and as opposed to sending moles around all these games to videotape sidelines and do other stuff like that. And as we've mentioned before, and as you made very clear when we talked about this last week, stealing signs is not illegal. Advanced scouting is, and that is the topic at hand here. That is what Michigan is being accused of. That is what the evidence points to has happened. So try all you might, Taylor Lewan. Try all you might, David Portnoy. Try all you might, to some extent, Yoder, who, by the way, I would like to put out a shout out to Yoder for absolutely obliterating the Michigan beat, who has turned a blind eye to not only the sign stealing issue, but the pedophile issue that surfaced on the internet last week too. So there's a lot of stuff going on up north, and that seems to be only just the beginning. So what are your thoughts there? What do you think the Big Ten should do? I don't, I agree with Pat McAfee, and I also agree with Stephen A. Smith. Their sentiment yesterday, they both said that if it is proven that Michigan has done what they are accused of doing, that they do not have a place in the college football playoff. I think everybody would echo that. The integrity of the sport is here at play, and I think the biggest issue here that Michigan fans fail to acknowledge is that the integrity of the highest honor of the sport is at stake here. And, that's what this whole thing is about, is protecting that and making sure that, whoever holds that trophy at the end of the season does it the right way. So what are your thoughts here as things start to heat up and develop?
So I think my initial thought here is I want to unpack a few things. First off, being Ryan Day, his brother Christopher Day, and the other brother now, I think it was Timothy Day, maybe. Don't quote me on that one. But the NCAA, so over the weekend, the rumors kept heating up that the PI firm owned by Ryan Day's brother was somehow involved in this investigation, and that if you read Michigan Twitter, they were saying that Ryan Day stole state secrets. This is treason because Michigan has government contracts. So they were saying that because of that, they hacked into Michigan's computer system, which houses government information, that it was treason. First of all, I want to unpack that a little bit. If the government has information that is secretive, or in some way confidential, or even we'll use the word classified. I know it's scary for most people. As someone who has held a security clearance in the government previously, I can tell you that it would be compartmentalized. There is no way that whatever server the football team is using would have information that government contracts and research studies and things like that that Michigan is housing would not be on the same servers. So we're already done there. There's no treason. Get out of here with that nonsense.
It's funny when people make comments like that and just have absolutely no idea. But go ahead.
Absolutely, and further to that point, it's now come out from multiple sources in the mainstream media, which I do urge everyone to believe at your own risk, because we all know that they're not always the most reliable. But multiple sources have confirmed that Ryan Day and his family were not involved in this. And I think the problem here now lies with the 10% of the hysterical Michigan fans who have decided to turn their own hatred for and embarrassment for their program into death threats. I don't know about you, but I would like to think that there is very little circumstance that I would send somebody a death threat. Right?
Couldn't do it. Can't do it.
I think this comes down to one problem completely, and this is going to kind of step away from football for a second in sports. But folks think that because they can say what they want on the internet means that they can do and say whatever they want. The problem is, if you do that in front of somebody's face, they'll probably punch you in the face if you're that much of a jackass. So remember that when you're being a keyboard warrior and typing all this nonsense on the internet, that would somebody who was in your would you say that in front of somebody's face?
Absolutely not. And I don't think anybody
Exactly.
I don't think if you took 99% of those people that, sent things like and said what they said to Coach Day and his family and, whatever else, I would say a firm 99% of those people that type that stuff would never say it to anybody's face, let alone Ryan Day's face. No matter, you take away the rivalry, you take away football, you take away any of that. You got to be a real piece of shit to make comments like that to anybody. So, the fact that they hide behind the situation at hand, and everybody that's not an Ohio State fan has this whole crying Ryan Day and seems to think that Ryan Day is this just petulant child who just throws temper tantrums when he doesn't get his way, and whatever. I mean, you can think whatever you want about the guy, but to go to the lengths that people have gone to say this kind of stuff, and we're talking about winning and losing football games, and we're talking about how people are winning and losing football games, and this stuff spans the sport, and it goes way past the boundaries of reality here. And when you start to do stuff like that, and it's not limited to one fan base, it's not. There's sections of every fan base, there's sections of every part of society that have people that are miserable enough to hide behind an anonymous Twitter account, that just like you said, makes them think that they can say whatever they want and it be protected under the First Amendment right, or whatever the case you want to make. But it's just, there's no place for it in life. There's no place for it in sports. And it's sad to see people take that kind of action in regards to the topic that we're talking about. So
yeah, and I think that the thing that people often forget is that we're all fans of a game, of a team of 18 to 22-year-old young men who go from in the span of 3 to 4 years, sometimes 6, depending on who, or 7 if you're, some of these COVID guys. But, Van Wilder did a good job with that being in college for 10 years. So I'm sure some of these guys are enjoying that as well.
Hey, hold on to it as long as you can, brother.
But but at the end of the day, these are young men that are trying out for the opportunity of a lifetime that's going to set them up for generational wealth. They're
Mhm,
working their asses off every single day to try to win. And these coaches, if the allegations are true, have done a massive disservice for these kids.
mhm,
And I think that that's what we need to really focus on is those guys within the Michigan program that had no knowledge and were just trying to play the game the right way are the guys that are the victims here. And you hate to say that because now their name is on a roster likely that tainted the game.
mhm.
So sending death threats as a fan to another team's coach that has literally nothing to do with it just because he's your rival is exactly what petulance is,
Mhm.
exactly what these people are calling Ryan Day. Now, off the soapbox there and onto some goofy things. Blake Corum, it comes out yesterday, yesterday being Tuesday, November the 7th, that Blake Corum was a party to an LLC. I believe it was BC2 or B2C, something like that, LLC, registered in Wyoming.
Mhm.
Other names on that registration included Connor Stallions. Later in the day, which I think is hilarious, there was a tweet of an Instagram post from Blake Corum talking about how he's made it, this and that, and hashtag BC2LLC. When he was asked about it by the beat in Michigan, he said, "This is the first I've heard of it. And and my lawyers are looking into it."
Mhm. Let me
So,
ask you a question here. Let me ask you a quick
yeah,
question
go
here.
ahead.
If you didn't know anything about it, or if you don't have anything to do with it, or if there's nothing wrong here, would lawyers need to be involved?
Uh, yes. Yeah. If he
Okay.
is if so hear me out here. Giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Um if he was not truly a party to that LLC, then he should get a lawyer on that to either investigate was it actually his social security number and that Blake Corum, or is there some other Blake Corum? Or if not, if it was some sort of fraud, to sue his ass into oblivion.
Mhm.
Um, and I would think it's number two there because Connor Stallions apparently has a lot of money if he was funding this ticket operation, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's the only way that I can put this together of why you would want um, lawyers involved.
Mhm.
But there was a second one. Yes, BC2 LLC was what it was. I'm doing some background research here too while we talk about this. But
Mhm.
there was a second LLC that is active for Blake Corum that is also BC2 LLC, but registered in a different state.
Mhm.
I believe it was Virginia, maybe.
Mhm.
So, how in the world is this? How does this happen? Is this a cover to, or is this just a completely different LLC? Because the other one was just BC2 LLC. The one registered in Wyoming with Connor Stallions is titled BC2 Housing LLC. Now, I have a really important question to ask here. What do you think the BC stands for in BC2 LLC?
Just using context clues and who we are talking about and the program we are talking about, I would think that it would be their running back named Blake Corum, who wears, wait for it, number 2.
Really? He wears number 2?
I think so. Yeah.
So you're telling me the guy who says that he's not involved has 2, not 1, but 2 LLCs with his initials and playing number in it. One being a joint LLC with Connor Stallions. But he's not involved, right? Connor Stallions is this lone wolf. No one knew what was going on.
Yeah, I just don't. There's every time I hear that nobody knew what he was doing, nobody knew who this guy was. This guy was a nobody. He was this, that, and the third. Maybe in terms of the staff, like hierarchy, he was a nobody. But when you look into it, he's got pictures with Aiden Hutchinson. He's got LLCs with Blake Corum. He's got, I mean, all kinds of different, connections to all these guys who said they had no idea who he was or what he was doing. So like, it doesn't make sense. And, as we talked about last night, this is a story unlike anything that I think I've ever heard before. And then, that brings up the whole vacuum salesman house debacle that he had in Ann Arbor. It just, every detail that comes out about this Connor Stallions dude, God bless him for being a veteran. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you've done for the country, whatever length it was. Thank you. But everything past that, this dude is an absolute nutcase.
Well, can we also back up there? And I'm going to step in here as the resident veteran here at High Street Sports. I'm going to hold judgment that he did good things for our country until I see his medical or his whole military record history. A guy like this, who's a scumbag, who was trying to be a coach while he was at Navy, at the Naval Academy. And let's also realize, when you go to a service academy and take a scholarship, you have a 10-year commitment to the military. He's like what, 24, 25?
I don't know.
He didn't serve that 10-year commitment. So I don't want to take away from what service he may have done, but I'm going to stop and hold judgment until that. But if it's a exemplary service record, then I'll shake his hand and say, "You're welcome for my service." No, that's a joke. I would say thank you for your service, but no, I don't want to take it away that he is potentially a good person and served his country honorably, because we don't know that. But I can tell you with certainty that I did. So that's where I'm standing from on this. And if you have a problem with that, please like, subscribe, comment, and we will continue to bring the noise for you.
Yeah. So the situation in Ann Arbor just continues to get weirder and weirder. It's going to continue to get weirder and weirder in the next coming days, weeks. We'll be interested to see what the Big Ten chooses to do here, because we all know how long it takes for the NCAA to get their business handled. So who knows where we're going to be at, in a couple weeks with all this stuff, or even in a couple of days. We will continue to keep an eye on that. We will continue to keep giving you guys updates as to what's going on up there as the college football playoff does get closer and closer. The Big Ten championship gets closer and closer. Your finger keeps moving across the screen. What do
It
you
was
have?
to get your attention.
Yes.
You didn't elaborate on the vacuum salesman deal. I gotta hear more about this.
Something about how he was running some kind of business out of his house, selling or repairing vacuum cleaners, which violated some kind of city code with him not having a business registered under that name at that address or something to that effect. And he, I believe, accused the person of turning him in to either hate the fact that he was a veteran or hate the fact that he was a Michigan coach, and blamed that on a Michigan State fan. So yeah, he ended up going to court, I believe, for all that stuff. Like I said, just a strange wrinkle to all this whole story.
Also, Connor, if you're listening, hit us up. Our email's in the description here. It's highstreetsports@gmail.com. Hit us up. We'll have you on. We'll talk to you about this, because I seriously want to know what was going on. I want to know what is the truth. And a guy, maybe a scumbag, maybe a good guy. He's probably a good guy, but we don't know. So let's see it. You want to out Big Jimmy, Hamburger Jim? Come at us. We'll jump on. We'll talk to you.
Also, I would love to hear a brief summary of your manifesto.
No, I need an advanced copy of that manifesto. Let's be real here.
Can you just share the document with us, please?
Yeah, I mean,
share that manifesto, highstreetsports@gmail.com. Just go ahead and add us to that authorized
Google Doc.
viewer. Yeah, just put us on the Google Doc. We'll read through it. We'll give you guys the Spark Notes version of it on the next episode.
Ohio
boy.
State played a football game this last Saturday.
They did.
Against the Fighting Greg Schianos of Rutgers, up in Piscataway, New Jersey. Like always, he pulled out the trick plays. Their longest play, and the longest play that the Ohio State defense has given up all season, was actually a pretty cool trick play. Let's be real about this.
It wasn't bad.
Line up like you're going in for the QB sneak, tush push, whatever's hot, right? Okay. Now I'm going to put it between my legs and give it to the running back. He's going to bounce out. Nobody's going to be paying attention. 45 yards later. Good on them, man.
You got to give credit where credit's due, man. And I was watching this game from a cell phone and a golf cart. And when I got to the tee box, I actually heard they ran the fumble Rooski, and it's down inside the 20. And when I heard that, it was very shocking. I don't know if I can recall any game in which I've seen the fumble Rooski run, especially to that level of success. So I figured, you text me an hour before the game started, and you said, does Greg Schiano trick play us today? And the answer was yes. And, he give credit where credit's due, man. It worked.
I think it really did. And you've got to expect that. It was one of those things where when I saw it, I had a Ron Burgundy moment. I wasn't even mad. I was just impressed. Like, that's just impressive.
Yeah.
You pulled it off. that took some balls.
Mm-hmm. Especially where they were at on the field.
I think I know where they got the balls from.
Okay.
The cannons. They weren't going to use them to shoot, right? Because they're not shooting.
Those poor Rutgers cannons, man. They just sit there idle the whole game, and they just dream of days past where they, once were a proud football program, and they were proud cannons that shot in celebratory tune when their team scores a touchdown.
Rutgers,
but not when they play the Buckeyes. By the way,
Rutgers
they had their wait. I want to backtrack that. They had their time in the sun in the early 2010s. They were, or whatever time that Greg Schiano's first go around. They got ranked up there pretty high in the old Big East.
But were they good?
Well, USF got ranked number 2 at one point. They weren't.
Hey, they've got a national championship, my friend.
That's UCF.
Oh, you said USF. Sorry, I thought you said UCF.
I did. Anyways, but we're talking about Rutgers and the Scarlet Knights going off the rails, talking about 2 Florida teams.
I mean,
neither of which
I forgot. I forgot. They were good. They were good in 2005, 2006.
Yeah,
around
2010s
there.
Was not the right.
And here's why.
But it was early.
He had Ray Rice.
Well, that helps.
And I would assume they had some elevators. You make that connection, and we'll keep moving. Did I break you?
No, but that was good. That was good. That was good.
Where do you think his keep chopping or chop on mantra came from? Ray Rice just chopping them down in the elevators.
Don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Yeah. Oof. Anyways, yeah, the offense in Kyle McCord, you mentioned the trick play that set Rutgers up for one of their 3 field goals in the first half. A pretty good drive. Ohio State punted the ball when they had the ball first. Kyle McCord and the Buckeye offense came down and scored on what was a beautiful throw from Kyle to G. Scott on the near sideline. But after that, there was not a whole lot to speak of on offense for the Buckeyes. But man, oh man, does TreVeyon Henderson keep proving me right. That dude is as dynamic of a playmaker as is on the Buckeye offense currently. He is the best running back on the roster, and he is playing like a man possessed. The dude continues to make plays. Was all everywhere for the Buckeyes. All-purpose yards have been racking up for TreVeyon in the last 2 weeks. So if Ohio State is going to continue on the trajectory that they're on, stay undefeated and play for championships this year, TreVeyon Henderson is going to have to be the guy that he's been the last 2 weeks because man, he has been incredible. And you hate to play the what if game. But damn it, what if TreVeyon had been healthy all year long? I would think, would have to see his name in the Heisman front runners with the way that he's played, given his level of play the last 2 weeks. So good for TreVeyon and a big welcome sight for the Buckeye offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Trey certainly deserves at the end of this season to potentially have the chance to go to New York. He's played that well. It's sad that an injury had to take him out of that. Especially what he called a cheap shot. There was clips last week on Twitter, kind of summarizing it. I didn't see what could have been a hit, but it looked, or what could have been cheap about it, but it did look like it was kind of a rib shot. So maybe he broke a rib or something like that. That's pretty painful, especially when you're trying to run. You can't really do it. So, yeah. Glad he's back and healthy because we certainly needed that. We needed another level of another piece, dynamic piece on the offense. Marv was kind of stealing everything. It looks like the offense is starting to get healthier.
Mhm.
You had Emeka come back and play. Carnell Tate got a little bit going there. You had Marv, you had Trey, our guy Chip. He's still healthy. He's
Yep.
still coming in, blocking, pass blocking, lead blocker, whatever. I did find it interesting that there was a new guy. I don't know. I can't even. It was walk-on guy, number 49. I don't know who he is,
Mhm.
but was lining up at fullback,
Oh.
or wing back, like kind of an H back type of, in the backfield, tight end / fullback. I think maybe just to kind of build some depth there, because I don't think you can have Caden Curry play that role all season.
Mhm. No.
He's dang good though.
Mhm.
So, Cade Stover didn't really play much. I don't think he played at all. He was hurt. And feel bad for the guy. Hope he gets healthy. Prayers up to him, because last we saw, he had a knee brace on. So potentially a knee injury there. G. Scott played pretty well though. Had a touchdown, 3 grabs for 24 yards. I thought that touchdown that he caught was almost a mirror image of one of Noah Brown's catches
Mhm.
against Oklahoma.
Yep.
What was that? 2016, 17, something like that.
Yep. Yep.
He just went up and said, "Nah, that's my ball. I don't care if you're in my way."
Yeah. I mean, he that was a catch that he needed personally. I think G needed that. But he, did a, pretty good job filling in for Cade. But I think, really the story here is what that means for Ohio State's offense long term if Cade can't go, because Cade seemed to be a bit of a safety blanket for Kyle.
Mhm.
Kyle, had those seam routes to Cade, some of those check down routes that Cade was able to hit somebody and get an extra 4 or 5 yards and things like that. So it does kind of change the complexion when Cade is out. And if you can get G to step in there and be able to give some added production at the tight end position in Cade's absence, that would only spell well for the Buckeyes. So encouraging to see G go out there and get that and make an athletic play to score a touchdown.
Yeah, you love to see it. I feel like the offensive line played one of its best games for the complete unit. Now, there were struggles everywhere. Carson Hinsman's still struggling in pass pro. He'll get better.
Yeah.
But we also got to remember he's a redshirt freshman.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that until they mentioned it during the game this week. And that was his, 8th, 9th start.
Mm-hmm.
So he's played 9 games as a college guy. I can understand where he's at right now. Josh Fryer, man, he is struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I think from a lot of the film that I've seen and watched this year, he struggles when he has to make athletic plays. And what I mean by that is when someone's not right up in his grill and has to move around, that is when he struggles. He does a lot of waist bending instead of actually moving his feet. So it's easy correctable if you start thinking about it and doing that. Josh Simmons, that false start that he got the benefit of the doubt on, my goodness, my man. I what do you think there? Do you think that that referees or officials, whatever you want to call officials, college and NFL wide, are kind of going away from calling all of those split second false starts? I mean, we saw how it was against, what was that, Kansas City the first week. That
Mm-hmm.
dude, that right tackle, false started how many times?
Yeah, I don't know what the disconnect is for Josh. I mean, you you look at the numbers that he came in with. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, the most penalized left tackle in college football last year, at the FBS level, anyways. And I would have to look at the numbers again to double check that, but I would assume that he is right up there again this year. Uh, I mean, you're talking about averaging probably at this point, given the numbers that he has, a penalty and a half a game throughout his college career. So I mean, there's for every step forward that he takes a step back with a bonehead penalty. And you just, as the games get more and more important, and they are, no matter if you're playing Rutgers, Michigan State, Michigan, Minnesota, it doesn't matter. At this point in the season, Ohio State's 9-0. And the fact of the matter is, if you are Ohio State and you're in a situation in a close game late, and you've got a guy out there that you're not confident in can hold his position until the ball is snapped, or not hold, or whatever the case is. I mean, at some point it's going to come back and it's going to bite Ohio State in the butt. And you gotta hope that it's not at an important spot in a game. And he got away with one, and thank goodness. But you cannot have that. It cannot happen. Those mental mistakes, you can see it game 1, 2, 3, but by game 9 it shouldn't be happening anymore. And I know you're probably in a position where you're trying to get a bit of a head start and not get beat by the guy lined up across from you. But when you're playing Rutgers, that shouldn't be an issue. And he's got to be better, and he's gotten better throughout the season, and all of them have gotten better throughout the season. But what you're really looking for here, and we've used the word 100 times this season, it's consistency. And if the offensive line can play with any sort of consistency, in a positive manner, you don't want consistently bad, obviously, but if you can play consistently good and give Kyle a clean pocket and allow the parts of the offense to do what they need to do, then you'll be in good shape. But if you keep taking the game out of your own hands and putting it in the officials' hands, then you're going to end up losing games that way. So Josh has got to continue to get better. He's got to figure out a way to stop these penalties. And if he does that, then he can be a pretty damn good player. And he's shown that he can be a pretty damn good player. But you got to see it consistently, and you got to stop with the penalties.
Yeah, he had 17 total penalties last year. Was had the most of any tackle, not left, but both left and right. So, yeah, that's tough.
I mean, you got to fix it. There's no other way to put it. You got to fix it, because you play Michigan, who has a competent defense, one of the best in the country, and they've got athletes out there, and you got to be ready for it, and you got to be ready for what they're going to throw at you, and you can't be holding, you can't be false starting, you can't. I mean, it's just penalties will kill you in that game, and you can't have it, and that's the game that everybody's looking towards. So.
Absolutely. And I think, he'll get better. I think he's going to get there. It happens. And we also got to remember, and I know I said this earlier when we were in our Michigan segment, these are kids that are 18 to 22 years old. Yeah. Like, they're going to be inconsistent. But, show that improvement every day. You won't hear much from us unless you just stink. But I don't think anybody on this team just stinks right now.
No, absolutely not.
Kyle McCord has had his fair share of great moments, but then he's had some moments where it's like, dude, what are you doing? So, clean up those turnover worthy plays and make it right, and we'll be good. Moving on, speaking of moving on to the defense, the defensive line is continuing to show why Larry Johnson is still employed with the Ohio State University consistently week in and week out. I think that is the best unit on this defense. And I think not only does that help the back end, but it also helps these linebackers too. Cody Simon, 7 tackles, probably the best performer out of anybody on the defense. Had a really, really good game. Tommy Two Thumbs, he was really good too. Left late in the fourth, right before their last defensive series with an injury. Looked like it was a tricep or elbow type injury. So I don't think he'll be out. He played last year with 2 broken thumbs. I'm not really concerned. We may just see him with the like Gronk and JJ Watt like arm brace on.
The bionic elbow.
Yeah, the bionic elbow. There you go.
Yeah.
We may get to see some of that this week. But one guy I really want to talk a lot about, or a little bit about, is Jermaine Matthews.
Do it. Let's do it. I'm in on this. Let's go.
So he's a true freshman. Came in, had a pick 6. What was that against Youngstown State? Really, really nice play. I think that earned him some extra playing time. Obviously, his habits off the field and practice habits have a huge role in that. But is Jermaine Matthews the next BIA corner? Are we seeing right now what could be, and I don't think Denzel's going to stay, but what could be an Eli Apple, Garyon Conley type of unit next season?
Yeah, I mean, I really like what we've seen out of Jermaine Matthews coming in out of necessity, in the absence of Denzel Burke. But, you really look at it and there is minimal drop off, which I think when you look at that in terms of what, the scope of what we're talking about here, we're talking about a true freshman stepping in for, an established third-year veteran guy who is having a bounce-back season that everybody thought he was going to. And, you take him out for an unfortunate injury. You insert Jermaine Matthews, as we mentioned before, a true freshman, and you don't miss a step. And that, to me, is the biggest mark of what that guy is about. And that speaks to preparation, that speaks to coaching, that speaks to the player and, athlete that he is. He looks good. He doesn't look out of place. He has not looked out of place. And the communication on the defense, I think with, the people that you have out, there's been some, the turnover with, being able to sub and being too deep at most of those positions on the field, and you still have the communication necessary. You still have the playmaking necessary. And to me, when you look in you're, looking at potential of a guy, that he checks all those boxes. He looks the part, he's playing the part. So yeah, I mean, Jermaine Matthews is one of my favorite players on this defense, because of what he's been able to come in and do, and the promise that he's showing. So yes, I absolutely think that he is, BIA's next man up, so to speak, or one of the next men up. And in other news in BIA, Jordan Hancock.
Where did he come from, man? He's been in the program for like 36 years, I feel like, and has never gotten a shot. When he's gotten shots, coming in for Cam Brown the last couple of years, when Cam Brown's been injured, which, man, him and Cam Babb, I would have loved to see what those two could have done healthy their whole careers.
Yeah.
But beside the point, Jordan Hancock has played a lot of football, but he hasn't really been one that stands out until you put him in the slot corner. And now he's playing his face off. Like, he's out there doing everything that you want out of a guy in his situation. Man, and that pick 6,
unbelievable.
It was. And I think it was really more unbelievable that he got it off of the bounce after Josh Proctor just laid the boom. And I really like the way that Josh Proctor lays the boom. I just want to see him tone down the recklessness just a little bit, unless you're playing Bama or Georgia, and then you gotta turn it all the way back up. Because that hit did not look good. I hope that he's all right. Hope he's going to make a speedy recovery, but the injuries up there in the back end are starting to pile up. You got Lathan, who was out last week. Not sure if he's going to be back this week. And Denzel Burke. So you were out 3 guys on the back end that are starters for that game.
Yeah, and to your point about Jordan Hancock, it has felt like he's been in the program for a while. But when he came in, had some injury issues when he first got to Ohio State, and then kind of got buried on the depth chart just a little bit. But when he's been, as you said, he's come in and he's been with the Buckeyes. Knew that he could be when they recruited him, and that, I think, to me, is the most important part here, is that he is the guy who the Buckeyes thought he was, and they've really found a very, very effective way to put him on the field, and he's made plays all year. So big credit to Jordan Hancock, and it was a humongous pick six when the Buckeyes needed momentum. So you can't overstate that play enough.
No.
And then in terms of Josh Proctor, it killed me. I want to take a little quick, second to talk about the broadcast in that play. For the love of God, can we stop as announcers, stop like almost begging for a targeting call? Like you're sitting up in the booth and you're watching a play that happens real time, and then you go back and see the replay, and it was like that guy, I can't remember for the life of me who it was, but the commentator just, almost begged for the referee to review for a target, and all the talk about how unsafe it has no place in football and blah 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 blah. My God, let it go. It wasn't targeting. He did not in any way forcibly contact the head or neck. He didn't launch. He didn't whatever. Like, if it's not clearly a targeting call, let it go. Stop grandstanding on that targeting nonsense when we all know targeting is the most botched penalty call in college football. It's the most inconsistently called penalty in the game.
Yeah.
And, referees can't even get it right, let alone you, Mr. Commentator guy, who is just sitting there, and I don't know if you're being told to say it or what, but my goodness, commentators, stop grandstanding on targeting. Leave it alone.
I think that this kind of is I think this really speaks to how college games are broadcast these days, where they or the networks don't seem to care about the pageantry anymore. It's all about whatever they can get clicks and put out on their TikTok reels.
Yep.
Right. That's what draws people in, because of the microculture that we have for everything, microtransaction, this, that, the other. So you've got these guys who they don't care. At least the intent does not sound like they care about the rule being enforced to help player safety. They really sound like they're just trying to get that moment so that their voice is on that clip on every TikTok reel that happens in the future. And I'll tell you that this happened prior to TikTok and that 10 to 60 second clip culture. Gus Johnson and Denzel Burke, you got barbecue back there, right, against Maryland,
in a play that to
was
this
not
day
targeting,
still
but
isn't
got
targeting.
called targeting. But what you don't remember is Gus Johnson called that for the hell of a hit that it was and how excited it made him. He didn't call it to try to get that call to go viral. Gus Johnson already knows that he can go viral if he wants, but that's just his personality. And that's the problem is these guys, it was two fucking dopey white guys that, you know, you look at them and you're like, why are these nerds calling this football game? And don't get me wrong, I'm a nerd too, but why are these nerds calling this football game? Can we get some real dudes out there talking about football? Like for real.
I think one of the things that, you know, these CBS and NBC are going to have to do
and
is
the cock. Peacock,
yeah,
I mean.
well, that's NBC too. The cock is it's NBC's cock. But one thing that they're going to have to do is figure out these booths going forward, because if they want to capture the Big Ten audience, throwing these slap dicks out there is not going to do it. And you know, you have got to get, you know, some more compelling announcers, and you know, Blackledge and what's his name that do the NBC broadcast, and you know, whoever CBS is throwing out there right now. I mean, you gotta, if you're gonna have the Big Ten and you're gonna have this audience, and you're bringing in four of the biggest, if not it's the four biggest West Coast programs, you're going to have a national TV audience. And Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, you know, that commands Wisconsin, you know, in those Big Ten teams that are still here, that commands, that's a big audience. And you're going to have to figure out the booths. You're going to have to figure out the personalities that you're putting in front of, you know, these fans for the first time. You know, I can't imagine that this coverage was this bad when they were doing the SEC as a whole. So step it up. And, you know, if you're going to, you can't just have the 3:30 game with the, you know, big time booth. You gotta spread it out. And, but it's got to get better.
The big time booth for CBS is just a propaganda wing for the SEC. I mean, Gary Danielson and who's the other guy in there with him?
I can't remember his name.
Musburger. It's Musburger.
It's not Musburger.
I think no. He was there, wasn't he?
Yeah, maybe. But Musburger's been in Vegas doing the radio for the Raiders. He ain't doing college football no more. But the fact is the booth has to get better, because, you know, it's
Brad
just
Nessler.
Yeah. So, and you know, which they're good, but they've, you know, they got to get deeper at that position for Sports Reference. But
when you've sucked on the teat of the SEC for most of your iconic games, you're going to be known for that. And so, you know, they're both Brad and Gary are very happy up in the booth in Tuscaloosa. I know I mentioned something about that after the Indiana game because they called it on there.
Absolutely.
And it was probably one of the most dull performances I've ever heard from them.
Yep.
We finally got away from ESPN's shit production truck, because those guys don't know how to move back and forth from camera to camera, get anywhere on time. Now, Fox had some issues, CBS has some issues every now and again, but ESPN's was awful. It has been for about 5 years, because they spent all their money on on-air talent who stinks. So I think really what needs to happen here is pay some slapdicks like Greg McElroy, because he's kind of entertaining. You know, some guys like that may have an ESPN contract that are tolerable. Who's the quarterback guy? He's played for the Lions. Stepped out on the back.
You're talking
Dan
about
Orlovsky. I wouldn't even mind him on a game or two on
at
NBC.
ESPN.
No, I'm just saying. ESPN. I'm just saying that, you know, give us somebody with an ounce of personality.
Well, I don't want my somebody
dudes.
I don't want my somebody with an ounce of personality to be a guy who has been deemed a quarterback guru by ESPN, which is the same guy that ran out of bounds for 25 yards in the back of the end zone and still didn't even know he was out of bounds and continued to try and throw the football. So don't give me some washed up second string has been. And I say that with all due respect to somebody who, did not make it to the NFL. So I understand how ignorant I sound. But my God, how did we appoint that guy quarterback whisperer and he couldn't even stay in bounds in his own end zone? But, whatever. The point is, these broadcasts have to get better going forward next year. And they probably will. And this was a test run to see how everything was going to go. But, it is what it is.
A test run in the first year. How are you going to get viewers back? Put Ohio State on every week? That's what Fox Big Noon's going to have to end up doing.
Yeah, well, I'm tired.
Because who else from the Big Ten are you going to put on there? Penn State?
Well,
they're not elite.
But I'm tired of having tired of having every I'm tired of having every big home game at noon. That's getting really, really old. But sure, put Michigan State under the lights with some pretty cool gray uniforms. That'll fix everything.
I think if we can get rid of Noah Eagle, Blackledge would be a great NBC 730 guy, and I could listen to that. Give me Sean McDonough.
Love Sean McDonough.
But here's the thing. We won't get him because he does hockey too for ESPN. So
which, by the way, he does a very good job with the hockey on ESPN. I will give him that. Sean McDonough.
Yeah, him and Banger are pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. In my opinion, McDonough is probably one of the most underrated voices in sports, period. Some iconic moments that were voiced by Sean McDonough. In my opinion, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. But we have gotten so far off the rails from what this topic is here. But that's what we do here.
I was going to say that's what happens when you play Rutgers. I feel like the timeline of this podcast is a good summary of how the Rutgers game went. And by that, I mean, it was up, it was down, but in the end, we won.
And that is all there is to it. Ohio State goes on the road in the Big Ten against, at the time, a 6-2 Rutgers team, now a 6-3 Rutgers team. Greg Schiano and company tried their hardest with a fumble Ruski, which I, again, never thought I'd see in an actual football game on TV. Might never see for a long time, but when it's Schiano, all bets are off. Especially when Schiano plays the Buckeyes, there's a little bit of love-hate there between the Buckeyes and Coach Schiano. But the more important part here, Ohio State is undefeated. They were a 35-16 winner this past weekend against Rutgers. And as I mentioned, coming up the pike here for the Buckeyes is a Michigan State team who is
Mel Tuggin.
Wow, he went there. But Ohio State's going to have some pretty cool gray uniforms, gray out the shoe.
Smell?
What have you. I don't even know what to make of what's going on anymore. The Buckeyes are undefeated. We have fun here. Thank you guys for coming back each week to listen to us spat our nonsense on the YouTubes here. Thank you guys for joining us again. Feel free to, as we mentioned every episode, go to the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, let us know what you think. We love seeing the comments, we love seeing what you guys have to say, and we appreciate everybody who interacts, likes, shares, comments on the videos and interacts with us, because we do this for fun, and we love talking about the Buckeyes, and we love talking about college football. So it's an honor to have each and every one of you guys here each week and watching us and hanging out with us. So your support can't be understated enough. Without you guys, this would be nothing. So thank you guys again. Ohio State's undefeated, moving on to Michigan State. cool gray uniforms. Everybody, if you're going to the shoe this weekend, wear gray, be loud, show everybody why the shoe is the best stadium in the world. And we will be back next week to talk all about it. So you guys have a great rest of the week. We'll see you guys soon. Wear gray, beat yourself up like Brutus, and go Bucks, baby.